Hey, my name's Ed, welcome to my channel, and welcome to sunny Milton Keynes. To be honest, I've been really struggling with motivation to film videos recently. When it's really cold, I find it really difficult to kind of just get on with stuff. So when there's a sunny morning like this, it fills me full of motivation and I just want to get on and do loads of jobs. So today, I'm going to finally start the tiling in the kitchen. I've got the tiles. And these are actually kind of filthy. These are metro tiles, I think they're called. So they're rectangular, they're 200mm by 100mm, and they've got a little bevel here. Now I've gone for the matte ones. I don't really like glossy things. So I've gone for the matte look, but as soon as I got them home, I got a bit scared and I didn't know whether I'd made the wrong decision. Because I've got used to the glossy ones in my bathroom and I wasn't sure about those at first either. But actually I quite like the glossy ones, even though I did want the matte ones in the bathroom as well. So I've gone for the matte ones. They'll be fine. I think it will be a case of I'll get used to them. I do want them, or I did want them to begin with, all the way along this project. I've been thinking about doing matte tiles. And now I've got them, I'm not too sure. So I don't know if that's just FOMO or something. So yeah, that's the tiles. I've only got one box because the other box that I used in the bathroom, I only used less than a quarter of the box. I think I might use more than one box, but I can always go back to B&Q and get another box. I didn't want to spend out double when maybe, if I only need 2 or 3 extras, samples are £1 each. So even if I have to buy 4 single tiles, it's cheaper than buying a whole box. So that's the tiles. And this time, I'm going to be using an edge strip. In the bathroom, for anyone that saw my bathroom tiling video, you'll know that I used a bead of silicone around the edge and it really brought the whole look down. I think it really cheapened the job. I didn't do a very good job of it. But this time I've actually bought an edging strip, and the same thing again. As soon as I got this home, this is a round profile. As soon as I got this home, I thought, maybe I should have just gone for the square profile because I quite like the look of that. But again, I don't think it really matters. Once this is all in and fitted, I'll probably never really notice it anyway. So yeah, I've gone for the edge profile. This was really expensive. This one strip of 2.5 meters was actually more expensive than the box of tiles by double. So I've only got 2.5 meters. I did measure and I worked out that I only need 2.5 meters, but the way you have to cut this, and I'm gonna have to cut miters on it to make the corners join up, it might work out I might need to buy another strip, but I thought I'd do that if it comes to it. Right, so that's the materials. Oh, and I'm going to stick the tiles to the wall exactly the same way as I did in the shower and in the bathroom, just with flexible adhesive stuff out of like a caulk gun. So yeah, that's the materials. I've got a little bit of crap on the side, so let's clear that off and just get started. Right, the side's clear, and I'm just working out how I'm going to go about this. So I'm going to be tiling this wall here, under the window, and out here a little bit. I'm not going to go as far as that socket. I'll probably end just beyond the window frame, wherever a tile falls here. And if it falls in line with this sink, I think I'll go a bit further, because I want to go up and around the window a little bit. This end I'm going to go up probably to this line, or maybe this line roughly, because obviously the cooker is here, so I need the biggest splashback here really. And I'm going to be doing this wall too, out to around where the worktop comes. And I'll do this wall to the same height as this wall. I think I'm going to start with this wall because this is the simplest bit. There will be some cutting required to get around the window, but nothing as complicated as in the bathroom. No holes or anything, it's just square cuts. And I can do most of that on the tile cutter, unless I need to do one with 2 cuts or the right angled cut to get around. So that'll only be 2 tiles, I suspect, one there and one here. I don't actually have the angle grinder with me today, which is a pain, so I won't be able to do those cuts, but I could maybe leave those ones for when I do have the angle grinder with me. And these ones, again, they're just an angle cut, so I can do those on the tile cutter. And I'm going to try and make a much better job of these ones in the corner, as I did in the bathroom, because that was a bit of a dodgy job. So yeah, like I say, I've been working out what I'm going to do. And I'm sure you might have noticed that it doesn't look like my worktop's level. When I first put this in, it looks like it drops by 10 mil, maybe not even 10 mil, 7 mil on this end, and then you see that gap closes up and you lose that white line, which is the cap to the gunnel, and then it's completely closed here. So I'm not sure whether I'm going to run the tiles along the worktop level or keep this gunnel. I think I'm just going to run across the top of the worktop. I've just decided as I was saying that. So that's what I'm going to do. And if I have to cut the slivers at a slight angle, it's only going to be tiny anyway. I don't think you'll even notice. Right, so I'm going to get a dust sheet to cover this because I don't want to get adhesive on my lovely worktop or my cooker. And then I think I'm just going to start. So anyone that saw my bathroom tiling video will know that I used this. I can't believe it's not nails, which is Screwfix's own version of No More Nails. I guess it's actually a hybrid rip-off between I can't believe it's not butter and No More Nails, which is great. Yeah, this is Screwfix's own version of No More Nails, and I was using this just in small blobs on the tiles because this remains flexible once it's set, and because just by the very nature of a boat, all this stuff actually moves around a little bit during normal use, especially when you're sailing. And if you bump the side of a lock, or if you get lifted out of the water on a crane or something, all this is going to flex a little bit. And also with the temperature change, it's all going to move a little bit as well. So I'm just using 5 blobs of this stuff on the backs of these tiles, so that, yeah, they remain flexible once attached. And it seems pretty strong. I mean, I've had no problems in the bathroom so far. So I'm just going to do exactly the same in the kitchen, and it's also going to help when I get to the top and I do that trim strip. So this is the first tile, and I've just got my spacers down here, and I just put it against the wall. I am actually going to leave a small gap, but I'm going to do that by eye this end, because of how the bathroom went at that end, to be honest. And I've got to try and make sure it's uniform distance away from the wall. So that's the first one in. Right, let's carry on and do the whole first run. So now I'm getting towards the critical point, and I've just lined these up, and it looks like there's going to be 2 tiles, which is going to take me out beyond the end of the window frame. If I just pull this sheet back, you can see it's also extended beyond the end of the sink as well. I'm unsure whether to do a half tile here. I'm tempted to do half a tile to bring it just a bit further beyond. I'm not sure what to do yet. And then I've got to put the trim strip up the end here. But yeah, because that's quite a small bit there, it will give me a much nicer, larger area here. But I don't really need it. This is quite far away from the sink. I am tempted to also end it here, but I don't know. I've still got another tile to do before I make that decision. Because of the trim strip, I'm going to have to leave this end open. What I'm going to do is not put a blob of adhesive too close to the end of the tile, so that I can still tuck the trim strip underneath at the end. So I've still got another tile to go before I have to make a decision one way or the other. I'm leaning towards just ending it here. I think that'll be okay. I don't want it to protrude too much into my workspace here because it doesn't need a splashback this far. There's a fellow boater, Cheeky Pig. Big ups Cheeky Pig, if you're watching. So I've just checked and my edge trim doesn't go beyond this line here. So as long as I put adhesive this side of this line, I can still tuck my edge trim underneath last. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure that none of my adhesive goes further than this line. But obviously in these blobs it's going to squash. So on this tile I'm going to put it here. I don't think it will squash that far beyond that bit. Let's try that. Right, so that's going to go this side. Put that up there. And then remember my spacer in the middle. The adhesive is only squished out to about here. So that should be fine. I should be able to get that edge trim behind the edge of that. Right, I'm on to the second row. Let's do it. Right, I've got my dodgy tile cutter. I've got the dodgy tile. No, these tiles are all right. I've got my Screwfix pencil. Oh no, this is an IKEA pencil. Sorry. I'm just marking this tile up. 100mm. And I know how to use this properly this time. In the last video, well actually in the first tiling video I did, I was scoring about 3 times, and I've since discovered you only need to score once. And it makes the break much cleaner. I'm much better at that now. Brilliant. Right, let's take these to the kitchen. Somehow this tile has got pushed almost completely up against the end wall. I think when I was making sure these were butted up to the spacers, I've inadvertently pushed them all down a bit. So this is almost contacting the wall. It's not quite, which isn't ideal, because there's likely to be the most movement between this wall and this wall. I'm a bit gutted about that. And also it means these tiles coming this way are going to really cover the bevel on these ones. I wanted to space them out so they met nicely, like this. But now that's hard up against there, I don't have a choice. I've got to continue, and I'm not going to put it completely in contact with this, but it needs to match this. So yeah, I'll just have to butt them right up, which is a bit of a shame, but oh well. I'm sure it's not going to make any difference in the end. So now I'm at a point where I'm going to need to make a cut to fit the next tile in. But as I said at the start, I don't have the grinder with the diamond bit in with me. So I'm going to have to wait to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to eye up where the next tile is going to go, and then I'm going to, because these ones just need a sliver off the top, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to take the sliver off the top and then just eye up how big the gap needs to be, put some spacers in to eye it all up, and then stick these in. And then when I come back with the grinder, I can make these cuts, or I can mark these tiles up and then go to the workshop and cut them at the workshop and bring them back. So that's where this next tile goes. Now I just need to use a couple of spacers underneath to get the height. Now this could be a bit tricky. Once the weight of the tile's on, it'll be okay because it'll hold those spacers in, like so. Make sure it's on my mark. There we are. And then I just need to take a tiny sliver. It's not much at all. There's my mark. Don't know if you can see that. that much off the top. Right, let's go and cut that. I've just had a thought that this might be really tricky. I remember cutting slivers of tiles in the shower in the last video, and it was actually really tricky to break them off. I'll give it a go, but I might find that I actually need to do this with a grinder, which would be annoying, but let's try. Oh, no, that is not going to work. Oh, that's really irritating. I've borrowed a grinder off of a friend with a diamond wheel in it, so I don't have to drive all the way to my workshop, which is handy, so I can get on with this job. I've marked where I need to cut on here, and it does look ever so slightly slanted to me, which is what I suspected, because I'm following the line of my worktop. But we'll see. I'll cut this and then I'll see if it is actually got a taper on it or not. Right, let's go and cut this. So there's the tile, and moment of truth. Actually, I'm going to put the spacers in, otherwise it's not going to be an accurate representation. It's not quite. Yeah, I've got a little bump that's not supposed to be there. Height-wise, it looks good. Doesn't matter if it's a little bit lower than this, because it's going to be tucked back behind there. You ain't going to see it. But along this edge, there's a little lump there. I just need to get off with a file, and I think that'll fit. So on the last round of tiling, I discovered that if you've got little lumps or something, you can use a little file to file it down. So I'm just going to file this little nub. That's in that corner. I think that'll fit now. And I've got a little bit of chipping here and another bit here, but like I say, when that's tucked under there, you're not going to see it. So I'm not too worried about that. So I'm just going to clean up the edge. Yeah, brilliant. Right, that fits there. So I'm going to put some adhesive on the back and glue that in. Right, now I just need to mark up the others along here. Take a tiny sliver off of each one and glue them all in. So that's what I'm going to do now. It's the next morning, and as you can see, I've done this rear wall. I stopped recording yesterday because it was taking too long to do all these cuts while filming it, so I just turned the camera off and concentrated on doing a good job. And as you can see, I've completed under the window and up the side. I stopped here with the intention of going one higher this morning, but after having slept on it, I don't think I need to. The tiles end after the sink, so the sink is covered. And to be honest, I don't splash that much when I'm doing the washing up. And I quite like how it ends roughly level with the window frame. So I think I'm actually going to leave that end at that. This end, I was planning on going another tile higher on this part simply because what I took out of here was quite high. The tiles did come up quite high on this wall. However, when I've been cooking, I've never splashed stuff this high. So even this is more than enough. Plus, if I went another row, you can see I've got 3 large pieces of tile on this last row. If I was to do another row and continue the pattern, I'd end up with 2 small pieces on either end, which I don't really like aesthetically. My partner said if I went another row, then the level would come roughly level with this part of the window frame, which I suppose she's right. But to be honest, it doesn't really bother me. So I think I'm going to leave it at that. I mean, yeah, I could always decide to go another row once I've done this wall if it doesn't look right. But yeah, I think I'm going to leave it at that for now. So that brings us to this morning. And now obviously it's just this part. I'm going to start from this end. As you can see, I've laid a couple of tiles out because this is the critical dimension. It's not a dimension. This is the critical part. I want the tiles to extend beyond the cooker because obviously they've got to capture any splash that comes off of this big hob in the corner. This is my wok burner, and I do quite a lot of wok cooking, and there's lots of stirring and shaking and tossing, and this is the most messy one. So it's got to extend beyond the cooker here, but I didn't want them to extend beyond the worktop like I had them extending beyond the plinth in the bathroom, because that creates a weird join underneath, which I don't want to be able to see. Obviously you can't see it unless you're laying on the floor, but it's just for my own sanity. So they've got to be like that. They've got to end here somewhere. Within 10 mil of there, I don't mind. So I've spaced these out roughly, and I'm going to start from this end and work my way that, and then I can get my dimensions for that corner one there with the diagonal cut on it. However, I don't know if you can see on the camera, I think you can, the gap at the top is definitely bigger than the gap at the bottom there, which means my worktop isn't flat, which is hardly a surprise. So I think I've got to be really careful with this first row just to make sure that it is completely level. So I'm going to have to I'll use the little cross spacers just along the worktop on that course, but I think I'm going to use them as well, but then I'll have to use other shims, other bits of material for shims to make sure that these gaps are actually uniform, to make sure my first row is level. Okay, that's enough waffle. Let's just get on with it. Yesterday I had a cloth protecting the cooker and the worktop and stuff, but I didn't actually I didn't get any of this stuff on anything, and actually because I couldn't see the knobs on the cooker, I kept accidentally turning them on and filling the room with, well, not filling the room with gas, but I could smell gas, so that's not good. So today I've decided not to have the cover over this because it just seemed like it was doing more harm than good. So I'm just going to be a bit careful this morning. Sorry if that was loud. And also I'm starting here, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roughly place these tiles where I want them on a couple of spaces to begin with, and the open time, the time that this adhesive is wet for, is actually quite long. It's shorter than if I was using proper cement-based tile adhesive, but it's still quite long, long enough that I can adjust the tiles even like half an hour after I stuck them to the wall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick these two on, and then I'm going to adjust them using shims after I've got both of them on. And I think even once I've cut that corner tile, this stuff will still be wet, and I'll still be able to make minor adjustments to the height of them to make sure that they're all nice and level. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm quickly going to stick these on like this. To be honest, I'm actually sort of enjoying tiling now. I don't like the grouting bit, but I am enjoying the process of sticking them on. It is quite satisfying. Right, so I am going to need to shim this one up, and then I might need to do the whole thing again once I get this piece in the corner. So I've got some cardboard that I think it's about half the thickness of these little crosses. So that looks more uniform now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press this one this way. And annoyingly, because this adhesive is fairly loose compared to the proper cement-based stuff, you can't pinch up these spaces very tightly. As you can see, they're quite, but that also means that this shim is too thick. These gaps don't have to be millimetre precise. As long as they look even, you're not going to be able to tell. As long as they look even, no one's going to be measuring them, is I think what I'm getting at. So as long as it looks acceptable, that's all I'm going for here. Right, I think that's okay. I think that's okay. So now I've just got to measure that space and cut a tile to suit. Nice. I've just cleaned up this edge with a file, and now it makes a lovely flat cut. It's ever so slightly jagged when you get it off the tile cutter, sometimes anyway. I think the bevels on these tiles make that worse, but once you've cleaned it up with the file, it's lovely and straight and makes a really nice flat edge. Great for when you're finishing an end of a run and you've got an exposed edge like this. Anyway, I've done that. I've got some adhesive on it. I've checked the fit as well. I'm not just doing this for the first time with the adhesive on. I've checked the fit and it does fit lovely. So I'm just going to put this in here, and I'm actually going to remove that spacer because it's making my life awkward now, and I'm going to use that one there. And then I'm going to use another one under the end here. And now I need a couple more for my end gap here. So it needs to go slightly further back. Oh, why is that now not fitting? That's slightly annoying. I suspect it's because it's sitting ever so slightly higher because of the adhesive. It's actually further up on that bevel, which is pushing it that way. But as I said, all these are loose still because of the adhesive. It takes a while to go off. So I can force these in here. To be honest, that is sliding out, but it's so close to being tight, I'm not worried. That gap will look uniform to the eye, even if it's not technically. It might be like 0.2 of a millimetre different, and it would still slide out like that. Right, so that's the first row done. Let's go back to the top and start the next row. And the start of the next row will be a half tile. I've been having trouble with the grout gaps, and it's just dawned on me what's going on. Because this course is at such an angle this way, relative to the ones on this wall, effectively these tiles are shorter than these ones. And as you can see, even after the first row, the grout gap is that's half overlapping. And by the time I get to the second row, it's completely in a different place. So by the time I get to the top, it's going to be sticking out by like probably maybe even 10 mil, because I've got 3 more rows to go. I've just spent ages shuffling these spaces around thinking it was something to do with my shims, but it's not. And to be honest, I'd rather have the gaps looking nice and uniform on this face than having the grout gaps line up. I suppose the way to do it would be to start from the top and work down, and then I can just cut a sliver off the bottom row. But obviously I've already started now and these are stuck to the wall, and it'd be so messy to take them off. And to be honest, I don't have the greatest attention span in the world, and I'm already getting bored of this job. I just want it to be done. So I think I'm going to continue, and when I get to that top row, just cut a sliver off the tiles at the top and let the trim strip do the heavy lifting and cover it. I think that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, I'm bored of this now. I just want to get it finished. So I'm just going to plough on. I finished this wall now and it lines up pretty well. I had to take 13mm off of this top row of tiles to make it level, and you can see it's actually a tiny bit higher, but I'm hoping the trim will cover that. And as you can see, the gaps don't line up at all. The further up the wall you get, the further out it is. Like I say, 13mm came off the top of those top ones. And yeah, the trim is going to cover this, the cut edge here. I did consider spinning these over so that the factory edge was on the top, but as I'm covering it anyway, it didn't seem to make sense because then these gaps might be wavy. So I'm going to let that dry now, and then it's lunchtime. I'm going to make some lunch, have something to eat, have a cup of tea, more importantly, and then I think I'm going to let it dry overnight, and tomorrow I think I'll do the grouting before I put the edge trim on. So then tomorrow morning I can do the grouting, and I can probably do the trim in the same day as well, because the grout doesn't take that long to dry. So yeah, just let it dry and then pick it up tomorrow. It's been a day or so and the adhesive on these tiles has totally gone off, and it's ready for the next step, which is grouting and edge trim. So normally you would put the edge trim on at the same time as sticking the tiles up. Obviously I've done this slightly differently. I have left a gap around the edge behind these tiles where I didn't put any adhesive, so that I will be able to tuck that edge trim in around the edges. But because you would normally stick the edge trim on at the same time as doing the tiles, you would usually grout with the trim in place. So I think I'm going to do the trim first and then I'll grout last. I was thinking about doing the grout first, but then I was worried about pushing the grout down and blocking where I was going to be putting the edge trim in. So yeah, I'm going to do the trim first and then the grout. The first thing is to remove all these little plastic crosses. So my plan of action is to measure this corner from the end of the tile, oh well, from the window ledge, windowsill, window frame, to the edge of the tiles, which is 117mm. And then I'm gonna do the same from the worktop to the end of the tiles, which is 205, 117, 205. And then I'm going to go and, this is a 90-degree corner, so it's a really easy 45-degree cut. I suspect the angle at the other end is going to be not quite 90, so it might be a bit more tricky, but this one's nice and easy, so I'm going to start with this one. And like I said, it's only short bits, so if I mess it up, I'm not wasting that much. So this is the aluminium profile. It's really windy out here, I hope you can hear me all right. So this is really expensive. This was 20 quid for 2.4 meters, or 2.5 I think actually. But so what did I say? 117, and that's to the inside edge of this rounded bit. So that's to this lower edge. 117 is roughly precisely there. Can I see that? Yes, I can see that. And I've actually, my saw is already set up for the right angle and direction of cut. Yeah, it is. It's got to go that way. So, all right, let's get this cut. So I actually forgot to press record just then, but I just made the cut, and as you can see, it's made a right mess of the material. The blade caught and it grabbed the material, which was pretty scary and not pleasant. My piece is actually okay. I can clean that up with a file because it's actually slightly too long. But yeah, I didn't like that. I might have to do it with a hacksaw instead, but I didn't want to do that because I don't know if I can cut it accurately enough in terms of angle. I'll have to devise another way, I think, because that is not safe. Okay, I tried again with the miter saw, but lowering the blade much more slowly, and it cut fine. Maybe I just got unlucky on that first cut where the blade caught. I don't know, but I know I also used a block of wood to hold the material down, so I'm going to do that from now on. So I've got this mitre cut now, and I just need to check with this one. I need to push this up a bit. It's right up against the worktop at the moment at the bottom, but I just need to work it up. I think I just need to push something up under there. And as you can see, that's sitting proud because I've got a blob of adhesive here. When I was putting these tiles on, I wasn't sure if I was going to go an extra layer up or not, but I don't think I am. I quite like it how it ends just here, so I think I've got a blob of adhesive in the way. So I'm going to cut a little bit of this edge trim backing back a little bit so that that fits down in there. I've just cut a little notch out of here where I think the blob of adhesive is. Ah, lovely, there we go. Yeah, that's done the trick. I suspect the trim backing is hitting each other because when I push that up, it moves that piece of trim. That's annoying. But I still haven't cut this at a true 45, I think, because I cut this by hand. And looking at that, yeah, you can see now that that's not the right angle. I need to cut that backing back a bit more. Oh, this is really fiddly. I thought I'd just be able to mite the corners, bang it in, glue it in, and it'll be fine. This is ridiculous. Okay, right, I've cleaned this up, cut the angle a bit better. Right, at last, better. That's much better. I'm much happier with that. Right, whew. I'm cutting it with the mitre saw again, as you just saw, but I had no idea it was going to take this long. I don't think it's going to take this long now I know what I'm doing, but that was a bit of a faff. I think I just got unlucky when it hit the material caught the blade, or the blade caught the material that first time. That was pretty terrifying and it scared me, and I spent a lot of time dilly-dallying, wondering what to do. But that's looking better. I'm happy with that. And there's a little gap at this bottom edge, but I'm not too bothered because I'll put, I think, a bead of silicone along the bottom to seal it. Despite how it looks in the bathroom, I think one bead along the bottom will be okay. So it will seal that edge. So yeah, I'm just going to apply adhesive and put this in now. And I'm hoping that it will hold. I think the YouTube videos I've watched on this, you remove the protective strip before you adhere it in. So I'm going to do that as well. Right, it's glue time. There we are, that's better. Right, so yeah, my plan is to put a bit of the adhesive along the gap and then just squidge this into it. I think I'm going to start with this piece because this piece fits better. And I'm using the same adhesive that I used for the tiles. It's just the, I can't believe it's not butter. I mean, can't believe it's not nails. Do you know what? Oh. Despite the trouble that was to fit, I'm really happy with how that looks. Cool. Okay, onto the longer bits. So this is the angle that I'm not sure if it's 90 degrees or not, because of how this wall is angled in. I'm fairly sure that's not going to be 90 degrees, so I've got a special tool to measure the angle. So what's going to be the best way to do this? My trim strip is going to be like that. That's annoying. Let's do that so it's almost tight. So yeah, my trim strip is going to be sitting like this. And the idea is I put this tool in place, lock the nut, and then that's the angle I need to cut. I mean, it looks fairly close to 90 to me. It actually might not. It might be slightly more than 90. Yeah. So that's the angle I need to cut, or the angle that the trim strip needs to be at. Obviously the angle I need to cut is half of whatever that is, which I don't have a method of measuring. So that's going to be interesting. It looks fairly close to 90 actually. I'm going to put this on the mitre saw and check it. So my thought is if I set the mitre saw to, well, 0, but so that the blade is 90 degrees to the fence, and then if I set, yeah, so it's slightly more than 90 degrees. And I've got a scale on here, which ridiculously is my only method of measuring on the boat at the moment. I don't know what that is. It's only just over 90. It's like 92 or 93. I wonder if I can get away with a 45-degree mitre. Let's see if this fits. I just had a thought while I was cutting this. I think this might have to be a double mitre in this corner, I think. I'm not sure yet though. Because this is on a curve, it curves this way. And the piece curving this way, they're going to be curving away from each other, if that makes any sense at all. So I need to, yeah, I wonder if this needs to be a 2-angled cut. My saw can do that. I just find all this very confusing. Yeah, I think it's a 45 and a 45 in both orientations. I think. Oh gosh, it's such a head screw. So here's my piece, and I've cut it with a mitre at the moment, which is in this axis. So that's 45 degrees. But this saw can also mitre in this axis as well. And I think that's what I need to do for this cut in the corner. I've never used this functionality on this saw, but it's got it. And I think that's what I need to do in this case. It can only go over one way, it can't go the other way because the motor is in the way of it tipping the other way. Which adds another level of complexity, because if you need to be cutting the opposite way to the way it can tip, you've got to have the material a different way. Maybe it would be that way. Yes, it would be that way. So I think I need to cut it this way. So let's do that. I'm really struggling to tell here if this is going to work or not. Maybe that will work. I don't know. I'm going to use this scrap piece as a test piece. Wow, this is so complicated now. This angle is ridiculous. How am I going to hold that? I don't know how to cut this. I'm going to Google this because the angle looks too shallow now. Maybe I'm cutting the wrong angle. Maybe I just cut the angle. Oh, this is confusing. Maybe it's just the angle in that orientation. I don't like the blade tipped over like this, it's horrible. I could do that by having the material held up like that and cutting that way. Yeah, like that. That's going to do the same. I can almost already tell that's going to work. I was cutting in the wrong orientation. Good. Okay. Whew. This piece of material isn't wasted because I think this is too long for one of the lengths I need, so I can save that and I can start a new piece. But I'm going to go and check this twice, 3 times before I do any more cutting. And here's the moment of truth. So they go like that. Wow, okay, I feel dumb. That was actually so simple. It's not a double bevel. It's just the plane that you're cutting on. Okay, so that goes together beautifully. Right, oh, right, yeah, I feel super dumb. Okay, well that's a very simple problem that I was making a massive meal out of. Okay. Yeah, that's gonna work. That's gonna work beautifully, actually. Good. So I can use the one that I cut wrong on this length, I think. So I'm gonna turn the camera off and do that because I do not wanna mess this up because I'm now running out of this material, but I'll bring you back once I've got all the pieces cut and they're all fitting nicely. It's some time later. I'm not going to say how much time's gone past because it's sort of embarrassing how long it's taken me to sort this out. But all these pieces are fitting in a way which I'm happy enough with now. I say happy. This tile in the corner is sitting slightly too high, as you can see, which means to make the mitre work, I need to have a slight gap under this piece of trim. But I'm not too bothered by that. I'm going to use the white adhesive, so I don't think you'll really notice the gap because the adhesive's going to be white. And I'm going to use enough that it squashes out here, and then I'm just going to wipe it off. That's my plan anyway. But yeah, this mitre is okay now. That was the hardest one to do because of this wall here. This is kind of like a double bevel, but only just because the angle's not that big on this wall. So I've cut it 45 degrees, and then this one I had to adjust. It's just less than 45 degrees, it's like 40 or something. I cut this one to fit afterwards. So it fits reasonably well. It's not perfect because I technically I need to do a double bevel on this, but I don't have the confidence or the brain capacity to do that. So that's going to stay like it is. It's good enough. It's in the corner as well. So it's one of those tiny things I'm agonising about now, and I will never notice ever again once it's in. So this one's reasonably straightforward. This is just normal 45 degree mitre. So that was easy enough. It took me 10 minutes to do that bit. So yeah, so now I've got this all fitting nicely. Now I just need to glue it in. I'm going to take off these protective plastic bits and then glue it all in. And you can see with this piece, I had to cut loads of the backing strip away because I thought this wasn't going to be the last row. So I put adhesive near the top edges of these tiles. So that was a little bit tricky cutting around, but I mean, well, it's not that hard, but this stuff isn't the easiest to cut with a hacksaw because it's so thin. I'm not going to push that down fully till I get this back piece in. I've just put a bit of tape across the corner because this corner had a bit of a gap on it, but when you push it together it closes right up, so that tape's going to hold that. And you can see from this angle, you can see the sealant adhesive along under here. But once I've grouted, I don't think you'll see that, so there will be a bit of a grout line, which is a little bit of a disappointment there, but oh well. I've never done tiling before other than the little bit in the bathroom, so. And you can see the mismatch in the tiles, the grout lines. But like I said, I don't think there was any way around that. But to be honest, I'm over it. So yeah, now just to let this dry and then I can start the grouting, which I'm sort of dreading, but this is a much easier area to do than in the bathroom because there's no taps or the bowl, the basin or anything in the way. So it's almost a week later and there's the remnants of a really beautiful sunset just out the window. Yeah, I've been working a lot, so I haven't had time to work on this. The next task though is to do the grouting, and I hated doing this in the bathroom, but I'm a little bit better prepared this time. For a start, I've got the proper grouting float. I'm hoping this makes a lot of difference. It's got kind of like a bit of foam on it, and it's the right shape, which critically it's the right shape. I don't know if these tiles are going to be slightly more difficult to grout because of the bevel, but I don't know, we'll see. Also, I made quite a bit of mess with the excess grout before, so I've got some masking tape and I'm going to run a line of tape along my edges and on the window frame here, and I'm going to use this blanket to cover everything that I don't want to get grout on. So I'm going to do the masking, then we'll mix up some grout and get on with it. I'm doing this in the cratch because I don't want to get dust all over the cabin, and it's basically pitch black outside, so I'm doing it out here in the cratch where there's a tiny bit of light. Hopefully you can see. Not really sure how much of this to mix up. At least this time I kind of know which consistency I'm aiming for. Last time this stressed me out so much. I do hate tasks where you have a time limit because there's something setting or drying, and this is one of those tasks, but it does take quite a while to go off, so I do have quite a long time. It's not like I've got 5 minutes working time, which is how I always feel when I'm working with something like this. Right, I've got it mixed. I put too much water in it, I think. It was way too loose, and so I had to add more powder to make it stiffer, which means I've mixed up what I think is way too much, but I guess it's better to have way too much than not enough. And I don't have any more grouting to do after this, so if I do waste some, it's not the end of the world. I'm going to do this wall first, but I'm going to put the grout bucket in the sink because I don't want to spill it anywhere, and I'm fairly messy at this. Now, I have watched some YouTube videos, obviously, about how to use one of these floats, and you kind of do that. So I'm just going to do that, I think, several times. And if I learned anything from last time, is that it looks really bad before it looks good. So I'm not going to, well, I'm going to try not to stress too much about this. But I think the most important thing is I'm just going to try not to get it everywhere. That might be easier said than done. I already am thinking I should have masked this wall. And last time in the bathroom, I did notice that I missed a couple of bits, especially near the edges. So this time I'm going to try and pay special attention to like the very edges. This tool is so much better. I cannot tell you how much better it is using this actual grout float versus whatever that thing I was using before. You can see it is trapping loads in the, oh, that's going off. Maybe I should shut up and get on with it. So I've actually got my sponge this time. I'm going to go over this with a damp sponge before I start on this face, because this seems to be going off already. Right, I'm going to let that go off for a bit and then start on this one. I'm trying to be as relaxed about this as I can. I'm fairly relaxed compared to last time. I'm also fairly sure this is not really how you're supposed to do it, but this seems to be what's working for me. I just slap loads on and then wash it down with a damp sponge until the lines are looking how I want them to. But I'm taking off most of the grout this way, and I don't know if that's normal. I mean, not most of it. There's a lot still between the tiles, but I'm taking off a lot. I'm putting on loads, and then most of it comes off. I've put some grout right in this corner, so I'm hoping that when the boat flexes, this doesn't crack and fall out. It might do, but we'll see. If it does, then my plan is I'll just put a bead of silicone in the corner if and when that happens. Okay, I've done the grouting. I've finished applying it, and I filled any little pinholes that I had. There was a right in the edges is where I tend to miss bits, and along here. So now I'm just going to let that go off for a bit, and then I'll come back in a while when it's sort of a bit drier, and do the second sponging. So I've let this dry off a little bit, and while I was letting it go off, I read the instructions on the bag of grout, and I've been doing it mostly right actually, I think. It did say once you've let it set that you can wipe the residue off with a dry cloth, so maybe that's what I've been doing wrong. But I think I was supposed to clear more of the excess grout off with the float while it was still quite wet, which I obviously did that with a damp sponge, and it takes a lot longer, I think, but it works. So I'm going to try the dry cloth now. This is now really quite dry and dusty. Oh yeah, it does actually work. This has actually got a bit of lint on this cloth, which I can instantly see is getting stuck in the grout lines. Maybe a damp cloth wouldn't do that. So I've squeezed as much water out of this sponge as I can, because I only want it ever so slightly damp. I don't want it to wash the... yeah, so that's making the grout nice and dark again. I guess it's keeping it slightly damp. Oh, that's much better. So next morning, and this grouting is all dry, and now there's just a dusty residue kind of left all over it, which I'm going to wipe off with a dry cloth. This is actually quite dusty because I did use this a little bit to wipe off some stuff last night. But yeah, now it's properly dry. It should wipe off really easy, and it does. There was some weird stuff left on these tiles, and I assumed it was from the manufacturing process. It was like a waxy type weird stuff, which I thought may have been applied to prevent them from scratching each other in transit. And I should have cleaned that off first, to be honest. Oh, this is really dusty. Okay, I've got a very slightly damp sponge. I'm going to use that instead. Yeah, I thought that waxy stuff was applied to kind of, yeah, prevent damage to the tiles in transit. But in hindsight, I should have cleaned that off beforehand, because some of it has actually got caught in the grouting, which is really annoying, because it just looks like little light grey bits. Yeah, and actually using the damp cloth the dry cloth was making the grout slightly off colour, making it a bit white. But this very slightly damp sponge, oh, I'm all over the place this morning. It's doing a trick. Right, so this is the final stage, and I was wondering whether I should run a bead of silicone around the bottom, between the worktop and the tiles, and I don't think I am going to. I was sitting there for ages this morning wondering whether to do it or not, but I've decided not to. I don't mind having a gap because it's quite neat along the bottom. Maybe if stuff gets stuck under there, I might reconsider. But for now, I quite like the way it looks with a gap. But yeah, I'll see how it goes in everyday use. I've put the kitchen back together and the tiling is done. I've given them another wipe down, and I just went along the back and wiped all the residue that was kind of left just along the worktop. I wiped all that away. But yeah, so this is done now. I'm quite happy with that. I'm glad it's the last piece of tiling. It's not something I really enjoy doing. But yeah, it's pretty happy with it. It's come together quite nicely, I think. And that just about wraps it up for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it interesting, maybe even useful. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider it. If you enjoyed this boat video, there's loads more where this came from in my boat playlist up here, and I've got some of my other videos in a playlist up here. And I'll see you on the next one.